Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Matt Zakreski, and I'm here to talk to you about giftedness and the growth mindset. I hope that you are having a wonderful day wherever you are and that you get a lot from this presentation. So, as we begin our conversation, I want us to do a check in once again, wherever you are. Tell me something that you're really good at. You can write it down, you can hold it in your head, you can send it to me in an email if you'd like. But I want you to hold on to that idea. While you think about the idea, were you always good at that thing? So I often talk to people about how I am a exceptionally good foosball player. Um, and the first time I ever played foosball was at my friend Dave's house, and he had just gotten a table, and he proceeded to beat me up and down the game for several hours. I came home and I said to my parents, my birthday is coming up. I want a foosball table. And now I can beat most people I play. But this thing that I often point out that I'm very good at, I started very not so good at. Now let's think about something you're not so good at. Let's think about a weakness. What are you really bad at? So, same thing. Hold it in your head, write it down, send it to me in an email, post it on Twitter. Um, and thinking about it this way, were you always this bad at it? Myself, I am a terrible singer. I am not good at it. The good Lord gave me many skills. Singing is not one of them. But part of the reason I bring this up is that while I am not a good singer, I've been around singing and music and musicals most of my life. So I understand how to hide my lack of talent, right? I can blend very well. Now, these things matter in a broader developmental spectrum because being bad at something isn't a static thing. It might be an element of who you are, but whatever the thing you're not so good at is, it begs the question of whether that's going to be that way forever or have you already changed? So, if you're going to talk about the growth mindset, it's vital to talk about Carol Dweck. Now, Carol Dweck is a psychology professor at Stanford University in California, and she researches motivation and mindset. Now, this is all about why people succeed or don't succeed, and refocusing our abilities to focus on what is in our control to foster our success. So, in cognitive psychology terms, mindset, whether it's a growth mindset or not, a mindset represents the cognitive processes that are activated in response to a given task. You could call this the intersection of cognitive psychology, motivation, and social psychology. So there's a lot of different aspects going on here, right? How we see ourselves, how motivated we are to do the thing that's in front of us, and what are the social stakes, how the world is interacting with us around these issues. So when we have the idea of mindset, Dweck really carves it out into two separate camps. There's the fixed mindset, and then that is put in contrast against the growth mindset. So a fixed mindset believes that students have basic abilities and their intelligence or talents are fixed traits, right? Showed up, this is what you got, you deal with it. Um, and when you have a fixed mindset, you become aware that there are limitations on what you have, and thus your goal becomes to look smart all the time and never look dumb. So trumpet your strengths at all costs, so you hope nobody ever sees your weaknesses. Now, in the growth mindset, which is Dweck's life work, the idea here is that talents and abilities can be developed through effort, good teaching, and persistence. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody can grow at the same rate or grow to the same level. But the idea is that hard work pays off and skills can grow and develop through that mindset. People who have a growth mindset are people who believe their talents can be developed through hard work, good strategies, luck, input from others. Those people have a growth mindset. And the research is pretty clear that those who have a growth mindset tend to achieve more. They tend to get better grades. They tend to make more money. They tend to live in bigger houses. than those who have a fixed mindset. Once again, I'm this smart, I'm this talented, I'm this good at it, I can't get any better. And our brains are naturally plastic. Our brains grow and change as we experience the world and bounce around our life experiences. So our brains are naturally changing. What research has found is that if we create environments, whether that's on the baseball field, in the classroom, in the music studio, in art class, that facilitate a growth mindset, people grow and their brains change more with regard to intentional teaching around a growth mindset rather than sort of just exposing kids to it and hope that they understand that they can grow. So this is a really powerful study because we are taking the brain's natural ability to change, right? The brain's plasticity, and then turning up the volume on that process by creating environments that facilitate growth. And then, as the adults in those environments, once again, whether you're a mental health professional, a teacher, a parent, a coach, a, a tutor, a singing instructor, whatever it is, whatever your line of work is, by changing the way that adults in power interact with kids, we can change the prevalence and power of the growth mindset. So the idea here is if used correctly, the growth mindset will drive both motivation and achievement. And, gifted kids, as a general rule, tend to be doing really well at one of the things at a time. They don't always do well at both of them at the same time. So, I'm really motivated to play Legos. Oh, but you have to do your spelling homework. I don't really want to do my spelling homework. Or I have to get straight A's on all these things. I can't do anything else in my life. And the idea here is that if we show kids that there are two parts of achievement, right? There's the learning aspect that we're doing naturally and the effort, which is the thing that we can really change. By tapping into both of those, it allows us to move from this work harder to work smarter. And when kids feel like they're working smarter, they're more buy-in, they feel better, they're more confident, and it tends to lead to higher achievement. So, like a lot of things in psychology, it's not so much teaching somebody a new thing as it is changing their relationship to their thoughts. Our kids are already working and they're already putting in effort and they're already learning. But if we change the way they're thinking about that process, we're increasing the power of that. So here we go. And this chart sort of spells this out nicely. Um, if you've heard me talk before on failure and perfectionism, you know that failure is unavoidable, right? We are always going to deal with challenges. We're always going to deal with hiccups or unexpected things. So the idea here is that adversity can trigger problematic behaviors at home, in the classroom, on the soccer field, or internally up here. So in this case, the example of an adversity, you get a bad grade on a test. If the student thinks that their intelligence is fixed, I'm dumb at this, I can't do it, I'll try less hard. And look, I did less well. This is what in psychology we refer to as a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I believe I can't do it, I don't work that hard on it, I'm much more likely to fail. Therefore, I found out that I was right. Remember, our brains are lazy. They tend to pick the simplest explanation, and our brains like to be right. So if you think you're not going to do it, it's actually more cognitively distressing to work against your own mindset than it is to say, oh, I guess I'm just bad at math. But you're not bad at math. Because if you have a growth mindset, if you believe your intelligence can grow, you can say things like, I haven't mastered this yet. I need to work harder or try a new approach. And when you increase your effort, you use better learning strategies. You tend to work smarter, not harder. And that often it turns out into increased academic engagement and performance. So this becomes a virtuous cycle. We feel better, so we do better, so we get better grades, which help us feel better, which helps us do better, which helps us get better grades. And a lot of the proponents of growth mindset will stop the conversation here. They'll say, see, look, growth mindset is a good thing. Thumbs up, everybody go home happy, have a nice day. Growth mindset for everybody at school. Now, I'm here to tell you it's not quite that simple, right? We want to keep the good ideas here and adapt them to the gifted population. So, growth mindset has a rough history with gifted people, because it sort of sets this idea of whether intelligence is fixed. Now, the fixed mindset would say that you're this smart, you have this kind of brain. And we know to an certain extent their IQ being a highly heritable thing, right? We inherit our intelligence through family. And we also know that IQ tends to stabilize later in life. So if those two things are true, there is a nature aspect of intelligence, and that's undeniable. That's a piece that is fixed. However, all brains have the capacity to grow and learn and adapt to growth and learning. That's all brains. So the idea here is that just because our brains are set at a certain level doesn't mean they can't grow and change and adapt with that, right? Giftedness isn't how smart you are. It's your ability to take in, process, and abstractly use information. And there's a fundamental difference between those two things. If you've memorized every US state capital, there aren't going to be any more US state capitals to learn. But if you've learned all the US state capitals, then maybe you learn all the Canadian capitals. And then maybe you learn all of the European capitals and all the African capitals. And you just go from there. You take the underlying skill set and you apply it to different things. The other piece of this is that giftedness is not a monolithic structure. As a gifted and ADHD person, I'm a twice exceptional individual. There are some things I'm really good at, and there are some things that I'm not that good at. And this to me feels like that pushback against the all children are gifted mindset that some people still throw out these days. All people have talents and all people have weaknesses. Those talents can be expanded on and built to a very high level, just like weaknesses can be improved to with hard work. But I'm 6 feet tall and I'm never going to be 7 feet tall. Therefore, there's a fairly sizable limitation to how good I'm ever going to be at basketball or volleyball because I'm not 7 feet tall. I'm never going to be 7 feet tall. Now, I could put in a lot of work to learn how to shoot 3-pointers better or learn how to dunk or work on my dribbling or passing. And if those things were more important to me, I might spend the time on that. But this is the important part. This is the hard intersection between giftedness, the growth mindset, and the fixed mindset, is that just because you're interested and capable of something doesn't mean that you can learn it, doesn't mean that you want to learn it. It means that it's a possibility. Our job is to put our kids in position to take advantage of that possibility to the extent to which they are capable. And that's such a powerful thing because for so many gifted kids, they're used to being good at everything. I grew up as a gifted kid. I was good in math. I was good in science. I was good in writing. I was good in reading. I was good in art. And then as school got harder, I started to specialize because my brain works better in the classic humanities classes, right? Reading, writing, history class, art, those are things I do really well. I hit my limitation in maths and science, and while I certainly had a tough time with it then, I understand now that's sort of where my brain went. Could I do better in those things? Certainly. But as we're going to get into in the back half of this presentation is connecting desire and values to something to learn are really going to show us what the best use of our time and energy is. So if you come to my my other talk in the future, this is a concept called the performance cliff in psychology. Now, what we find here is that IQ is a relatively fixed thing. I say relatively fixed because there's obviously a lot of factors that go into it, but let us assume for this conversation it's relatively fixed. And you're this smart, and school gets harder and harder pretty consistently as you go along, and your performance goes up, up, up along with it until you hit the point where school becomes harder than you are smart. Now, in this moment, the reason we call it the performance cliff is one of two things happen. Kids dip and they either crater or they dip and then they figure out how to learn and go up. Now, the idea here is neurotypical kids, they hit their level of school is harder than they are smart much earlier. So they have to learn those soft skills of hard work, studying, executive functioning, all that stuff comes in earlier. For gifted kids, because they are so much smarter than school is, they don't have to learn those things at all or to the same level until much later in their career, when A, the stakes are much higher, and B, their brains are less plastic, they're less malleable. So, we call this a performance cliff, and it usually hits somewhere between sixth and ninth grade. For me, it was eighth grade. So if you're looking at this, this is one of the other talks I give, and please feel free to check that out. But this is an idea here that IQ can be a fixed construct, but it's not the only story, because this moment here, this change shows sort of a fixed mindset, like, I guess I'm not smart anymore. I guess I'll stop trying in school, which we all know happens, versus a growth mindset of, what I've done before clearly isn't working anymore. I need to try something new. What else is out there? And this is when we start teaching gifted kids how to learn, how to study, how to take notes, how to ask for help. Those are skills, and they're skills that can be learned. So when Dweck put her book out there, the same thing happened to her as that has happened to many great theorists, is once you put a piece of work out in the world, you lose control over how people interpret it and implement it. So, and I think a lot of the things in the gifted community are based around sort of the rigid orthodoxy of, you must have a growth mindset at all times. And it's not accurate, right? And Kyle Dweck has spoken to this herself, and I thought I would leave her quote here. The idea is the growth mindset has become the right thing to have, the right way to think. It's like we're telling teachers and parents, are you an enlightened person who fosters well-being, or are you an unenlightened person with a fixed mindset? And the idea here is that having a being so committed to having a growth mindset becomes a fixed mindset, right? So paradoxically, you end up hurting yourself. The path to a growth mindset is a journey, not a proclamation. So the idea here is that it's not something to have so much as it is something to aspire to, right? And that is something that's really important, right? Having a growth mindset isn't flexible. It isn't being open-minded. Those things are important and they factor in, but it's a related but different concept. And the growth mindset isn't just about praising effort. It isn't about saying you're working really hard, because the idea here is that unproductive effort is not always a good thing. In fact, sometimes it can be a very bad thing. The idea here is to praise the effort that is moving us in a direction of intentional growth. But, if you wanted to lose weight, and you come to me and said, last night for 3 hours, I ate no food at all and ran up and down my stairs. That's a lot of effort. I'm not quite so sure that's the best effort to lose weight. I think there might be ways we could do that are a little bit smarter and frankly safer. So we have to capitalize on setbacks. We have to learn from trial and error. Those are things that we're already doing. A proper application of the growth mindset is finding the lessons and the silver linings in those failures, in those dark clouds. And then, I still see this in classrooms with teachers all over. If you just have a growth mindset, good things will happen. But that's missing the point, right? You have to support that from an organizational perspective. You have to have that as a top-down thing. So is your superintendent supporting the principals, supporting the teachers to have classrooms that are about growth mindset? Because if you do, you're going to have kids who get less than great grades. You're going to have kids who have days where they just can't work, because that's part of trial and error. What a lot of schools and parents do is they say they have a growth mindset until things get hard. And then they say, well, but I mean, like, let's cut some corners. Let's make sure that we get back to our good grades or our stellar GPAs. If you want people to learn and grow, you have to understand it's not a linear process. It's not a consistent process. And there are going to be bad days, rough days in that. I know this because I'm a psychologist. Therapy never works linear. I have people who've had great weeks in therapy come back next week and they say, everything is terrible. I didn't do any of the strategies you told me. I guess I'm bad at this. And it's like, instead of using that fixed mindset, it's like understanding that we are all people in development on a developmental curve gives us permission to grow within our errors. So the idea here is that the growth mindset can help us close achievement gaps. It can help other people catch up, but it also is about acknowledging that those gaps exist in the first place, right? It's not about, oh, Sally would be doing better in art. We just haven't found the right growth mindset for her yet. Sally may just have a lower ceiling when it comes to art. We can help her work to the best of her potential within that space by espousing the right parts of a growth mindset. But to say that it's as simple as we just haven't figured it out yet can be missing the point. So there are many traps when it comes to this. And the idea here is that, like I said before, when things get rough, that's when we tend to throw up our defenses, go to old habits, right? And those responses inhibit growth. So we see our person not as content. I am smart. I am an artist. I am a soccer player, but in context. I am learning a new skill. I am outside my comfort zone. I tried a new team. I tried a new league. I tried a new class. All those contextual factors always factor into how well we're performing and how well we feel about it. When you assume an either or approach to any mindset, we stream struggling as being wrong. So, if you're not working, Johnny, you're not having a growth mindset, and that's bad. It's once again, it's the wrong message for our kids. No, black and white thinking or either or thinking is psychologically rarely helpful. The idea here is that wherever we are is where we're starting. Some days you're starting near the top of the ladder. Some days you need to find the ladder. But when you meet somebody where they are in that moment, it allows them to feel seen and supported while also practicing the best parts of a growth mindset, which are, hey, regardless of where you start in this journey, we can help you move forward together. And this is, I think, especially as a psychologist, is one of my important things. When we reconceptualize failure as a step towards growth, like, oh, you're going to learn from this, you might miss the pain and frustration that comes from failing. We don't want to be toxically positive, right? Oh, you're going to grow from this. You have no idea how it's going to help you. It's going to be wonderful. Maybe all those things are true. But if your kid is sobbing because they just got cut from the school musical, now's not the time to push growth mindset. Now is the time to say, I'm so sorry. This is so hard. I'm here for you. Let me help you. Let me sit with you in this feeling. And when you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next. So don't, sitting with our feelings has value, and that's wonderful. It's also a necessary part of the healing journey. So don't skip that in our hurry to grow. So here are some other ways to avoid toxic positivity. Things aren't that bad. I often say, like, we don't play the misery Olympics. If it hurts, it hurts. There's no threshold there. It just hurts. It doesn't need to pass a certain level. Telling people to suck it up is psychologically problematic, right? We want to say, like, hey, listen, sometimes you can feel sad and let it out. Let me help you process those feelings. How could you fail? You were so good at it. Failure can be a learning process. What was different this time? Being curious about failure is a great way to push back against toxic positivity. And we can use actually the fixed mindset to help people move forward. Sometimes we don't want to grow anymore. That's okay. I actually think that sentence is really freeing for a lot of kids, because when you're a gifted kid and you're supposed to be good at everything, for a lot of people, failure is treated like it's not an option. But I used to work at a school for gifted kids, and I would sit in their computer coding classes, and I'll tell you this: computer coding makes zero sense to me. It's like reading upside down hieroglyphics. I can't do it. And And I would sit there and try and listen to the teachers and follow along. And my code monkey would be spinning in circles, not getting the bananas. And then I realized I didn't need to do this anymore. My life has many skills. I can point myself in many directions. I don't need to be good at everything. And I think being able to step out of something shows a lot more of the growth mindset of I'm living my values than the fixed mindset. But in this case, having a fixed mindset of like, I don't want to do this anymore is okay. Knowing yourself is a powerful thing, right? It's like it comes back to a question of values. Some things are innate, right? Height is an innate thing. It doesn't mean we can't grow and change. We acknowledge that we are all a mixture of fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. We probably always will be. And if we want to move closer to the right parts of a growth mindset in our thoughts and practices, we need to understand where our fixed mindset thoughts are, because that gives us a place to start. If you sit there and think, I'm never going to be in shape, that's a fixed mindset for you. I'm never going to be in shape. I've never been in shape. Then that's where we're starting. I can't tell you to go do P90X or hot yoga if you don't even believe you can do it. So we call this in psychology the stages of change. If you're pre-contemplative, you haven't even started thinking about the problem yet, I can't give you solutions. I have to help you understand that solutions are possible. Then we move to contemplating. We're thinking about the right decisions. Then we're going to go to a committed action. We're going to try it. If it works, we try a different strategy. If it doesn't work, we try a different strategy. If it works, we go to a maintenance state. But most people have trouble leaving contemplation. It's hard enough to move from pre-contemplation to contemplation. It's really hard to move from contemplation to action. If you have a person in your life who's like, oh, I should try therapy. I really should try therapy. I should try therapy. I should, but there's so many things in my way. They have a fixed mindset right now about therapy. We can't shove them out of it. But if we meet them where they are and we help them explore where they're going, that gives us the place to start intervening. You don't tell a person who's being wishy-washy about whether they should go to therapy about how wonderful your therapist is, because that's not moving them forward. Helping them explore their own thoughts and feelings, that helps them move forward. One good way to meet kids where they are is the leading edge of learning. So, combining the work here of Jim Delisle and Angela Duckworth, we have here is using pre-assessments in school to understand where kids are starting, to understand where their fixed points are. And we can do that for classes in school, where they are in sports, where they are on their own self-esteem. And what this chart is the Yerkes-Dodson law. And it basically says that everybody has an ideal level of anxiety. Too little anxiety, we check out, we don't pay attention, we don't care. That's Jim Delisle's work. We also shut down when things get too hard. That's Angela Duckworth's work. And she's talked a lot about grit. The idea here is that what happens in a lot of classrooms with gifted kids is, they're doing basic math and the basic math is boring for them because it's really easy. Say, I want to do something that's better. I want to do better math. And the teacher gets frustrated and says, fine, here's calculus. And the kid goes, I can't do calculus. So things were too easy. I was disengaged. Now they're too hard and I'm disengaged. And you said, see, you're not that smart. That's the wrong approach. The idea here is, okay, by using a pre-assessment, we realized that Pablo knows addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. He doesn't know algebra. So I'm going to start teaching Pablo algebra because that's where his leading edge of learning is. That's where the right amount of anxiety is. We need to meet everyone we work with where they are without shaming them for it. So when you get to know your client or child, you're going to get to know what their goals and motivations are. And they're not the only goals and motivations that matter, because the systems they're in are going to have goals and motivations too. The school says, hey, it's great that your child wants to learn and grow. They also need to come to school at least 155 days. Otherwise, they're going to be truant. So we figure out what's our workaround there. Or it's like, hey, I understand that your child wants to do high-level physics. We don't have that here in middle school. How do we get that? So we leave room for change. We understand the different values and stakeholders of the different pieces of the system. And we make room for bad days, low motivation, distraction, anger. Those things do not invalidate a growth mindset. And vitally, they don't invalidate the hard work that your kid has already done. Everybody has bad days. Everybody struggles. Those things do not invalidate the growth mindset. And there's something very freeing about saying, sounds to me like the right way to use our growth mindset today is to do some self-care, or is to sit with these feelings, or take a day off to try something else. That's much more true growth than it is being fixedly adhered to this. We must always be moving upward and onward. Failure, like we said before, is unavoidable. Failure to me is frequent attempts in learning, right? We have this idea of we tried a thing, we learned something from it, let's try it again. But another way to think about it is talking about the feelings that come up with failure. If you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're insecure, lean into those feelings. They're trying to tell us something. And then fail can also mean finally actively investigating looks. For many of our kids, giftedness can be sort of myopic, right? It's like, this is the way I do things. I've always done them this way. This is a good way to do those things. But then sometimes that thing is not a thing you can do. I solved many a problem in school by drawing cartoons about it because I like to draw cartoons. You'd be surprised that didn't help me so much in AP chemistry in high school. And after I kept failing my projects because drawing cartoons didn't help me understand valent bonds, finally I said, I should probably think about trying to learn this a different way. And I did. Sometimes failure is permission to try something else out. So the deliberate practice here is shared both in the growth mindset approach by Carol Dweck, but also Grit from Angela Duckworth. The idea here is that we should always be working towards a goal with intention. The idea is to be good on purpose. We want to focus strategically on our weaknesses, which means we need to acknowledge where we exist, right? Like a full assessment gives us strengths and weaknesses. We give good feedback and we have good processing. We are moving in a direction. We're having a lot of conversations about it. And we have time limits for work and time limits for play. We're not robots. So if we think about how to use this, the idea is that our thoughts shape our beliefs, and therefore our beliefs shape our actions. So this is really about changing your relationship to your thoughts. If you change your belief, that has a powerful impact. The growth mindset, if used correctly, can create a passion for learning and development that can be lifelong. It's a wonderful thing if used correctly. As Kyle Dweck says, I think this is a great thing for our gifted population. Why waste time proving over and over how great you are when you can be spending time on getting better? If your gifted child is in school and they have shown that they can write a 3-paragraph essay, it's probably time for them to write a 2-page paper or a 4-page paper or a 10-page paper. Don't keep checking, I've already done this. That's how kids get disengaged in school and they lose focus and they lose their passion. We want to make connections between thoughts, events, and outcomes every day. We're already using the growth mindset, the best parts of it. And the idea here, if you have a kid in your life who's a gamer, as I'm sure many of us do, kids use the growth mindset in gaming all the time. I couldn't do this thing in Roblox, now I can. I used to lose on the first level of Super Mario Brothers. Now I can beat the game. But the idea there is they've already learned from their failures. They've already leveled up. They've already shown what happens when you put in the time and the work for a thing that they care about. So this isn't some abstract concept that we have to somehow download into our brains. We're already using it. By helping our kids pay attention to it, we help them remember, or realize is probably a better word, how much they're already doing this and how much it's already helped them. And putting those things in context really matters because, like I said before, context is a variable that we tend to underappreciate. So every situation we try something is different. So when you process afterwards, what worked, what didn't, how else could you have done it? What was different about this time? You're learning about yourself and you're seeing yourself in context, which often leads to better psychological growth. And yes, the most powerful word in the growth mindset toolbox is the power of yet. I'm not good at this yet. I have no friends yet. I'm not able to lose weight yet. Other things you can do is right now, this time, I'm a big believer in using and instead of the word but. Um, you know, use it strategically, don't overuse it. I've been in classrooms where teachers who are rigidly adhered to that growth mindset, like, I'm having a bad day so far. It's like, no, like right now your kid's having a bad day, that's okay. Meeting them where they are is part of the growth mindset. you know if I can't do this math yet. What's struggling with math right now? Let's have a conversation about that. The idea there is that the growth will come, and it will come better if we are meeting kids where they are. Listening is a much more powerful tool than talking. One of the most powerful things you can take with you from this presentation is asking somebody, do they want help or do they just want to vent? And if they tell you that they just want to vent, great. Sit back, relax, put your tray top in its upright position. You can hear the story. If you get an idea that might be helpful, ask if you can share something. It's about meeting where they are. The goal is to see yourself on this developmental journey. It's a pathway. So within the profoundly gifted populations, within the neurodiversity population, we have these intellectual overexcitabilities. They make us care a lot. And it can be hard to tone that down, especially when we've never struggled before. Gifted people are intense. We care a lot about a lot of things. As I often say, it's, frequency, intensity, and duration. We care more often for longer periods of time at a higher intensity level. And oftentimes our intellectual development is mismatched with our skill development. So you might have the coolest 3D printed idea in your head ever, but if you don't have the fine motor skills to make that happen, that's going to lead to a lot of frustration. So I'm a big soccer player. And if you look at this picture right here, this is a great conversation to have with your kids, your teams, your classes. But if you're the parent or coach of number 13 and you've put that ball against the crossbar and it's not going in, what would you say? How do you think your kids would feel in that moment? How would you approach the situation? What would you say and when? Giving yourself permission to process and react differently over time is another part of your growth mindset as an adult who cares about kids. So when you think about the growth mindset, I often think of this particular story. So when I was consulting with a school, this was in New York, and we had a kiddo who, was saying, like, I cannot learn Spanish. Guys, I know this is a bilingual school, I cannot learn Spanish. And the teachers were giving him a lot of stuff with the growth mindset. You can't do it yet. You're going to do it someday. We just haven't found the right way to teach you. And it was hard. And he was miserable and disengaging. And the teachers were frustrated. And one of them said to me, it's like, I just want to be able to tell this kid, just, either stop complaining or do something. And I was like, it sounds like you're pretty burnt out on this. She's like, I'm so burnt out on this. So I got involved and I met with the kid, and he said, listen, I know I'm smart and I know I can learn Spanish. I just can't. I don't know why. I just can't. So through the process of us working together, I ended up doing a psychoeducational assessment on him. And yeah, he's a very gifted kid, 147 IQ, pretty spectacular. He also has hidden dyslexia. He's so smart that his reading scores were all in the average range, but it hid a fundamental inability to read letters correctly. He was so smart, he was getting by. So his fixed mindset that I can't learn Spanish ended up being sort of a fixed point of he was having trouble with the basic fundamentals of reading. Can't read Spanish if you can't read, right? So that allowed us to completely shift our focus with him and start with some Orton Willingham and really help him understand the basic pieces of English and Spanish. And now he loves it. But the idea there is that pushing so much of a growth mindset on him failed to acknowledge where he was at, and we were missing a key data point. So if you think about all the research on this, a lot of adults in stakeholder positions, teachers, professors, deans, university professors, superintendents, CEOs, they place grit and growth mindset. It's really important. It's an easy buzzword. It makes sense. It's something to deliver. But you'll notice that it's ranked all over the place in terms of success. And I think that means, and I'd like you to think about this for yourself, but I think it means that the environment you're in is going to give you different lessons, and the situation you're in is going to give you different lessons. Maybe it's more important in an interpersonal relationship than it is about work. I don't know, but your values and your situation is going to help you understand how important grit and the growth mindset are to you, the person. So when Carol Dweck said this, she said, maybe we put too much emphasis on sheer effort in our original work on the growth mindset. Maybe we made it too easy. We need to have a growth mindset about our own work about the growth mindset. Because when we do that, we model the kind of learning that we really want people to have. So it's not something to achieve, it's something to aspire to and keep working at. So thank you guys so much for your time. I hope this was helpful, and we were able to sort of understand what the growth mindset is better and figure out how to apply it in a meaningful way. Here's how you track me down, drmattzakreski@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much, and I'll see you around. Take care.